All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, August 1st. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, the team ups continue here. You know what? The Avengers are getting back together. So we got to bring back the box office comic book Avengers. So it's me, it's Clayton, and it's our guest from the Direct podcast, from the Cinema Spending podcast, our resident superhero expert chief correspondent, David Thompson, is here. Welcome back to the BO Boys, David.
Thank you so much for having me. What a celebratory time to be here with you guys on the BO Boys podcast. It's raining money over here in superhero land. It's just a wonderful time.
So we're going to get to your boots on the ground reporting from San Diego Comic-Con, from Hall H. But first, give us your take on Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, record-breaking, biggest R-rated movie of all time. Did it exceed your expectations, and why do you think it worked so well? Was it just the cameos?
Yeah, I had it at 200 million, just a pretty round number going into the weekend. So 211 ended up being awesome, sixth highest domestic of all time. So it did overperform even my projections, and I thought I was pretty bullish on it going in. Like I saw some people saying like, a good bit lower than 200, like it wouldn't hit 200, and I was pretty, locked into at least that number. I don't think it's just the cameos. I do think this is a building sensation when it comes from Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, and now Deadpool 3, quote unquote. Like the cameos are part of it. The No Way Home Multiverse of Madness intrigue is totally there, right? People forget Multiverse of Madness. Not everyone loves that movie. Big winner at the box office, especially opening weekend, right? And I think there was definitely some of that. But I also think that people are interested more than ever in R-rated comic book movies. And people are very interested in seeing Wolverine and Deadpool on the big screen. I mean, so many people forget just how big of a star, not only Hugh Jackman, but how big of a character Wolverine is. You put Wolverine in a title of something along with Deadpool, and Deadpool has been the most successful monetarily, Foxmen universe movies, which no one would have ever said 10 years ago even, or maybe even like 15 years ago. So I think it really just everything worked out well. The audience scores were very high. People are enjoying the movie. It's not going to win any Oscars, but it is a fun film for comic book movie fans and Deadpool fans. So the fact that it is crowd pleasing too, just that, very generally, it is a crowd pleasing comic book movie. That helps a lot as well. A lot of positive word of mouth and just a lot of interest. It's one of those where we'll see weekend two, but everyone was just dying to see it opening weekend because you don't want to be spoiled, right? You knew there was like X, Y, and Z that is going to be spoiled and already is spoiled. Like, the cameo actors and actresses already posting on social media and being like, thanks for bringing me out, for the, the week of shooting. So it was all of that kind of wrapped into one, but I am confident still moving forward in its legs and how it will continue to do throughout August.
So, just touching on the spoilers for the readers of the BO Boys Substack, we just dropped a new article. We actually pointed out some cameos that you may have missed in Deadpool and Wolverine, such as the Menendez brothers, Steve Bartman. So check out the BO Boys Substack for that list of really, really behind the scenes cameos in Deadpool and Wolverine. So what do you think is the future of Deadpool? I mean, this is not, I don't think, a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 situation where they were saying their goodbyes. I mean, do you think Deadpool will return in X-Men movies, Deadpool solo movies? Are Deadpool and Wolverine the new Hope and Crosby? Are they going to be just a road team that stays together for years and years?
Yeah, so sitting here today, I think there's definitely a possibility that a Deadpool 4 is going to happen. Will that be before an Avengers 5 and an Avengers 6 that are now on the slate pretty officially, where now they're looking into filming dates and all that good stuff? I don't think so. I do think that both Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are going to be in at least one of the upcoming Avengers movies.
Wow.
Very sure thing. And how the movie ends, no spoilers, but how the movie ends, there's no reason for them not to be in many ways. I think they're actually going, the universe that they're in, just kind of like where they are within the multiverse of it all, it's going to play a part. We're going to talk about the news later, but like all these things, all these multiverses and all these separate universes, they're all going to collide and shit's going to hit the fan for Secret Wars, you know, for fans out there. And maybe if you don't know, Secret Wars is basically it's multiverses fighting, right? Like that's the whole bit. And for, you know, I guess for kind of like a really deep look ahead, like what's exciting about Secret Wars for at least me, because I'm kind of over the multiverse thing, which is kind of funny because they joke about it in the movie. The end of Secret Wars, the comic, is they end up with just back to one universe. So, you know, there is kind of an end in sight, but I think that this Deadpool and this Wolverine will play a role in that journey, whatever it is, in, you know, Avengers 5 and 6.
Now, so David, it's interesting that you mentioned your thoughts on multiverse, because I was going to ask you this, because we use the term and the media uses the term superhero fatigue a lot. You're hearing that everywhere, and I'm sure you're fatigued hearing that term. But is it more so multiverse fatigue? Is that really the thing that is upsetting the general public? I mean, obviously not with this, but I think what you said with the fact that, you know, we talked about how there hadn't been a Deadpool movie for 6 years or so. There hadn't been a Wolverine movie since 2017. So there was need and want for this character. But I think it is that multiverse element, the fact that it as much as it like expands story elements, it also limits caring about anything, because people can just die and come back and all that. But once they get this Secret Wars and everything's just one universe, do you think that is something that is going to save superhero movies in a way?
I think that it will help the MCU, because I do think like they poked fun at it for a reason in Deadpool and Wolverine, because it really is in many ways Multiverse of Madness and Quantumania. And by the way, Quantumania isn't really an inherent an inherent multiverse movie. Multiverse of Madness totally is, right? And I think like part of my review of Deadpool and Wolverine is that this is the movie that Multiverse of Madness wanted to be. Like even its cameos, like the reasoning and the vehicle for bringing the cameos into both movies, I thought was much more well done in Deadpool and Wolverine. So I think that might help in terms of good graces heading into more multiverse storytelling down the line, which probably won't really start clashing and colliding until Fantastic Four. And then, you know, a year later with, of course, what is it called again? Doomsday. That's right.
Doomsday. Yes. We'll get to Doomsday.
We'll get to the Doomsday of it all.
Boy.
But no, I mean, I think that the whole multiverse thing, the issue for me personally is it's not just Marvel. It has been in DC. It has been in other just like IP, you know, like Everything Everywhere All at Once is an amazing movie that came out a couple years ago. And it's arguably the best multiverse movie, right? So there's something to that. And there's a show and it's a book, great novel, Dark Matter, by Blake Crouch. And now there's a TV series on Apple Plus, a multiverse story, right? Totally different, right? But I think just the zeitgeist overall has become a lot of stories about the multiverse. So it's maybe not just a Marvel thing. So I do think, and I think Superman, shout out Superman, next year,
in the hat.
The new DC universe is going to benefit from not being multiversal at first and possibly ever, because it will feel a little bit refreshing for comic book fans, and it'll feel refreshing, you know, in a few years for Marvel fans as well.
So what do you think though? Because I saw Deadpool and Wolverine in San Diego. I also was at Comic-Con, saw it in a theater a few minutes away from the con audience, attendees, Friday night. They played the trailer for Captain America Brave New World. And I must say, there was, at least the screening I was at, pretty much a muted to bored response during that trailer. Like, do you think this is going to carry over? Do you think Brave New World, Thunderbolts, what comes after Thunder? Was there another one right after Thunderbolts that's already announced?
Fantastic Four in July.
Oh, Fantastic Four, that's going to be big. It'll be its own thing. But Brave New World and Thunderbolts, I mean, I personally don't think it's carrying over there. I think that Florence Pugh is still going to try and escape this movie before the premiere, even if she's already filmed it. But, you know, what do you think? Do you think the goodwill carries over? Or is it like Guardians 3, where we wanted to see these characters that we love? Doesn't mean that we want to go see these other movies.
It is a case by case basis. I've pretty much, it's hard to generate the kind of momentum that they used to in terms of the MCU, where it did feel like every single theatrical installment built on itself. And it was scarcity, right? Now there's not really much scarcity. There was with this movie, as it's the only MCU film of this year. And I think that also helped it, kind of going back to the original question. That definitely helped, actually. It's a lot for so many people, to your point, Pat. This was the latest MCU movie people have seen in theaters since Guardians for many, many people, right? Because everyone skipped the Marvels. I went. That was about it, right? And so, with all that being said, we will see how it gets, how it looks when it's closer for Brave New World. I will be honest, I do think that Sam Wilson as Cap is a positive. I think Harrison Ford in this movie is a big positive. I think the Red Hulk being in this movie is a big positive. In the Comic-Con footage that we saw in Hall H, you see the actual hulking out moment. I mean, it's a bunch of fans in the convention center. Pandemonium.
It was pandemonium. Okay.
It was amazing. And specifically, they did a really clever job during the Cap panel where Harrison Ford wasn't out there initially. And it did feel a little lesser than. There was kind of like all right, we're doing this spin-off Captain America movie. Then Harrison Ford comes out later after the footage showed, and he comes out and he's like doing the whole like Hulk thing. Everyone loved it.
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, that movie went through like reshoot hell. So that's always a big concern in terms of like the actual quality of the movie. But I do think that it'll never get as bad as the Marvels, at least not with this 2025 slate. I don't see that happening. I don't see Captain America 4 being as big as Deadpool and Wolverine or really that close. But I do think it'll be back to like, a double right down the middle, just like you got during a lot of the 2010s of the MCU.
Okay, you think it could be a Thor 2? It could be that type of situation, or an original Thor.
Well, maybe Age of Ultron, right? I mean,
Age of Ultron's a Avengers movie. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if I'm just
I'm sorry, we were talking about Captain America. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Captain America. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about Avengers.
Yeah, no, yeah. For Captain America, I mean, I definitely see it doing like just way ahead, like 600 million globally. Like that seems like a pretty like safe choice. And, and probably more than that.
Okay,
yeah.
So you think the Harrison Ford situation? I didn't see him. I was covering Comic-Con, but I was not in Hall H. at other business. Did he come out? Did Harrison Ford come out ripped? I want to know. Has he been on the Kumail Nanjiani chicken and broccoli diet? Does Marvel have Harrison Ford ripped to the gills looking like Hulk on stage? When you say he was hulking out, is that what was going on in Hall H?
No, I wouldn't say all that. He looked great.
Okay.
He looked great for his age, I'll be honest. But any energetic, excited to talk about the movie, excited to talk about him actually being Red Hulk now, because before he had to like lie about the fact that he was going to actually turn into Red Hulk in the film. And he just brought a great energy. But no, physicality wise, no, not exactly.
Energetic. That's interesting. So do you think that Mr. Ford is off the reefer because he's famously a pothead, a rare grumpy pothead, Harrison Ford? So maybe he's off the stuff, which could be good. And maybe it's in the bylaws that if you're going to be anywhere near our DJ, you can't be smelling like illicit substances.
Right. Does forgive me because I haven't read the comics. Does Red Hulk have to fly a plane at all?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. I think then that's good for everyone involved with that they don't have Red Hulk flying a plane in the movie. So okay, you think that it is a case by case basis in a way that it wasn't in the the salad days of 2018 to 2019, where just every Marvel movie comes out is going to be a hit. But there is goodwill now, so good for them. I mean, the box office, whether you love these movies or not, the box office needs it to be in decent shape. So Hall H, so the Brave New World panel, Harrison Ford's out there, juiced to the gills, hulking out. That's great. I mean, let's get in. Well, before we get into Doomsday, the RDJ, what were some of your other big takeaways from what you saw at Hall H before we get to RDJ ripping off the dime store Halloween mask?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thunderbolts was definitely the least memorable section of the day. So, Kevin Feige gets up there. First off, I love this. All theatrical, focused on the here and the now in many ways. Only the 2025 releases and 2 Avengers movies. Hell yeah, Feige. Just do that.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I'm excited about the Daredevil show. I love the Netflix series. I don't care to hear about the TV shows right now.
Yep.
Show me the box office.
Yes.
And that's what he did. He was like, here are the movies. Here's footage for it. Get excited. And I loved that, right? So with Thunderbolts, it looked pretty good. I actually thought it looked better than I was expecting personally. Because here's the issue. Like, not all the characters that are joining the cast I'm like that excited about, like Ghost and Taskmaster. They're not like beloved characters from the MCU. And that's kind of, I think, an immediate like slip from Marvel, where it's like, you're not generating hype just putting in a character because it's a character you want people to like, even if they don't like it, right? Or even if they didn't really get drawn to it. But then it's pulled the other way. When you have Florence Pugh, huge applause. Everyone loves her as Yelena. Sebastian Stan, Bucky Barnes, an OG member of the MCU. People love that. And in general, the action looked good. The story looked okay. And they kept kind of still beating around the bush of like the main quote unquote villain or like the main like plot of the movie, which I found frustrating because it's like, I think it's kind of silly. They're still trying to keep it a secret, but to be fair, Thunderbolts was something where I didn't have great expectations. So it kind of surpassed them in a way, but it's still at the end of the day was by far the least memorable kind of like announcement or footage. It looked perfectly fine. It looked like a fun action movie, but nothing more.
Okay. Yeah. Florence Pugh, what was your read on Florence Pugh when she was on stage? And did you happen to see like a little red dot that was, like a little red laser dot that was on her forehead, perhaps? Did she look under any duress? Did she hold up that morning's newspaper when she was on stage? Like, what was your take on Florence Pugh, or was she happy to be there? Was she very excited to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
She was delightful. She seemed happy to be there. I mean, she's very well press trained. I will say, just to jump ahead quickly, Eben Moss Bachrach, who's playing Ben Grimm in Fantastic Four. I don't know if they just hopped off a plane. The red dot might have been on his forehead. He looked lost up there. Like, he gets asked a question by the guy who plays Peter in Deadpool was the moderator. And he's like, yeah, I guess. And then just like, it was so awkward, just moved on. Like, he looked so lost. And even I was watching back some of the like post-game, post-panel interviews and stuff. He felt, it was great. It was a great quote. He felt awkward being him and Joseph Quinn. They're like, it felt awkward being there, getting all the applause and the cheers, having not filmed the movie yet. You could almost tell it bothered them that they were there promoting a movie they haven't filmed yet. Right. And it also, I think that goes to show personally the nerves of actually trying to get Fantastic Four right on the big screen, because it's been butchered is a strong word. Has not hit its potential now 3 times, right? The 2 movies, early 2000s, then the 2010s disaster. And now this is supposed to be the one that brings it back. This is Marvel's first family. People forget, one of Marvel's biggest pieces of IP by far, and it has the potential. It has the cast. In my opinion, footage looked fantastic. We're a year away. I'm buying so much Fantastic Four stock. I think it's gonna go crazy at the box office. I think it's gonna be the biggest. I think it might be the biggest movie of next year.
Wow. So then this is summer 2025 is this Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, and it's coming. That'll be insane July if Superman sticks, even though it's way ahead of schedule. We have Jurassic World dropping that month, then Superman, then Fantastic Four. And I do think Fantastic Four has the potential because of Downey Jr., which we'll talk about in a second. And I think that one has more of the kind of connection to a possible multiverse thing that would maybe drive more Deadpool and Wolverine viewers to a Fantastic Four, if that makes sense. Whereas Cap 4 and Thunderbolts are so grounded, and maybe people aren't as interested in that right now. So yeah, I mean, I am like, after seeing and I'm a fan, so this comes from a fan's perspective, of course. I thought the footage looked amazing. Like, I couldn't believe how much they were able to show. It looked phenomenal. It looked totally different. It looks so unique. It looks like one of the most unique MCU movies, like by far, because a lot of them do feel like Cap4 and Thunderbolts. They didn't feel revolutionary.
Right.
Fantastic Four felt revolutionary to me.
Yeah,
those feel like TV. The Thunderbolts and Captain America definitely feel like TV because we've seen those characters on TV.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have the Fantastic Four in this new iteration, and you forgot the Roger Corman, of course, the best Fantastic Four movie, which was the Roger Corman one in the 80s or 90s, I believe. But I think that is what's going to separate that. And I think that maybe is a good place to move away from, because the MCU has just had too much of the same look for too long because it's been all dumbed down for TV.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to that, where if you haven't seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, parts and pieces of Cap4 and Thunderbolts will be missing, right? Like that Disney Plus series is really the linchpin between phase 3, which was everything, Endgame and before, and then this new era, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a slight concern. I do think that in marketing, they should be able to explain it up. It's going to be a harder sell with Thunderbolts, because Thunderbolts really is this ragtag team of characters from television and from Black Widow. So, and Black Widow was a movie where, a lot of people didn't see it in theaters because of COVID, but that still should be a concern. The only thing that, I think helps Thunderbolts, it is in the primetime MCU slot of early May, as long as it keeps that date. And while the Fall Guy didn't do much with it this year, it should, when it is Marvel Studios and you have Florence Pugh on red carpets and probably like eating spicy wings online or something,
yes,
you should be able to get butts in seats.
Yes, that's a great point. You got to have these stars that could eat the spicy wings. I want to go to a question that we got from a wannabe girl, an email. Subject says, young Hollywood at elevated risk of comic book movies, ? And then she writes, after Deadpool and Wolverine's record-breaking opening, I have concerns about a potentially resurgent MCU, at the very least for the first one with RDJ. I think we'll get nostalgia curiosity boost. And DC having Superman's potential hit. Is there an elevated risk of stars from young Hollywood that have until now avoided a starring role in comic book movies being pulled into some kind of cinematic universe, like what happened to Florence Pugh with Thunderbolts? Names like Chalamet, Glenn Powell, Butler, Sydney Sweeney, and the Monsterverse King Kong. So, I'll throw that to you, David. If these superhero movies are, getting bigger again, could we see a Timothée Chalamet or King Kong get pulled into the Marvel Cinematic Universe with a big paycheck, or Sydney Sweeney or Glenn Powell?
Yeah, so I think Chalamet won't ever do it. Okay. I think in terms of his career, he can do the franchise thing without doing comic book characters. And I think that's kind of like the avenue he is going to take, right? He did Wonka, he did Dune. He can open these movies by himself. I don't think he's very interested in that. Sydney Sweeney's technically already done it. Madam Web, wah. I do think she might be back, though. She definitely has. I think Sydney Sweeney, for sure. I mean, she would be beloved if she could get into an actual, role people would be excited about her in DC or Marvel. And then to me, right now, sitting here today, the golden goose is Glenn Powell. I think it's going to take him some convincing, but I think DC and Marvel are behind the scenes fighting for him for so many different characters. He is the most fan cast actor right now, because there's a variety of characters on both the Marvel and DC side. People would love to see him in. I mean, they're talking about now hiring Hal Jordan for the Lanterns TV show. They would love that, as a Green Lantern, they would love him in that role. Batman, right? I mean, that would be insane. He was in The Dark Knight Rises. What a cool story that could be. I could see him as Bruce Banner, Batman, I don't know, but they would hire him immediately if he were to want to do that. Over on Marvel's side, right? They're going to be doing the X-Men eventually and bringing back a guy like Cyclops. People think he can make a great Cyclops. So there are so many characters Glenn Powell could do and so many fan casts out there. I'm sure he will be offered a lot of money one day to, be the leading star in one of these movies. Will he ever take it? I don't know, because I also at the same time don't know if that's really what he wants to do with his career. And personally, I'd love it, but I also like to see him do these movies like Twisters, and really and really care and put so much time and effort into these, and really just care about making movies that are for the big screen but aren't for comic book fans. Even though at the same time, I would also love to see him in the DCU or MCU.
Yeah, I think of those, I agree. Sydney Sweeney is the most likely, because she could slide right in there and be your ScarJo replacement for the next 10 years with the right character. And it's a toss up between Chalamet and King Kong in terms of least likely, I think.
Well, did not Leo DiCaprio, a man who's never worn a cape, I believe he had a conversation with young Timothy and said, don't do it.
Yes.
And I think that he took that to heart. And the Glenn Powell thing. Now, again, everybody who listens to this podcast, the Wanna Bo Boys, Wanna Bo Girls, Wanna Bo people, they know I'm no fan of superhero movies. I will tell you what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of David Thompson. I'm a fan of David Thompson and the work that he does in this realm, because I think you're doing a great job with all of this. You're very even-handed. You're a smart young man. The future of box office punditry is in good hands. But it makes me so sad to think of Glenn Powell as Green Lantern or as, even Batman. Like, I think Batman would be the only thing I would say you have to do Batman.
You got to do
that's
Batman.
The only one you have to.
Did Batman? Anyone could do Batman.
That's the only one.
Or of course he could win the Oscar as Joker, because Joker's due in a couple of years. Yeah.
Well, there needs to be another one before Glenn can win, because we know how the pattern goes. It's like you have to have one Jared Leto in there.
Yeah.
Barry Keoghan, he'll be in probably the Batman too. As the Joker.
Barry Keoghan probably he cleanses the palate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but the Glenn thing, it's like it's gonna be a huge that will really show. If he signs on to a Marvel movie in the next few years, that means a lot just for the business in general and just for superheroes as an ongoing genre. Because what were we gonna say, Pat?
Well, I mean, I was going to say that, we're talking of stars.
Why did you interrupt me? Why did you feel the need to interrupt me? No, I'm just, I just want to know.
You're the one who has the busy schedule today. So I'm just
inquiring minds would like to know. No, go for it.
The answer is you're the one with the busy schedule. So I'm trying to move along.
I appreciate it. Now that you said that, I appreciate that.
To the next thing. And when I say busy in quotes, because I'm sure it's not that important, but
David, you see
stars. Stars in the superhero movies. David, there is no bigger star news for superheroes than Robert Downey Jr. took off the Halloween Adventure costume that they got 5 minutes before he went on stage and revealed that he will be Dr. Doom in an upcoming Fantastic Four movie. Were you in Hall H for that? And he's showing us, you got to watch this on YouTube, because David is showing the picture he took Robert Downey Jr. in the Jesus Christ posed in a green suit. He's Dr. Doom. Tell us, what was that like, and what is your take on this? I mean, is this a good thing, or is this a sign that is this a seemingly desperate move on anyone's part, or is it great?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this, as you can imagine. So I'll try to keep this as succinct as possible. First off, the moment in the room was unbelievable. It was like a game 7 of an NBA finals game winner happened. That was the reaction to the fans. And by the way, so many people online have seen the video of him undoing his mask and taking it off, but it's from a more close up angle. I was kind of farther back. That's just happened to be where my seat was and everything. It was pandemonium. People were like standing up, trying to like actually see if it was him, almost like actually like on the screen or on the stage instead of just on the screen. So the moment was literally one of my favorite moments ever. I couldn't believe it. It was my first Hall H, and I couldn't believe that happened. Because when Joe Russo is like, this is the one guy we got to do Doom, everyone's already so stoked that Doom's happening, right? It's like, yeah, screw Kang. Doom's coming. Let's go. Like, people love Dr. Doom. And then it ends up being Downey. It never even crossed my mind before he popped up. So it was just like pure shock. I'm doing my job, taking photos and stuff, and sending out messages. Anyway, my reaction is that I'm all in on it.
Okay.
In terms of box office, this is a total win. This is a total ceiling raiser for this movie, and I don't think there's any way to argue anything different. Personally, like in terms of just like the discussions, on this podcast and other box office, conversations, you cannot tell me that Downey being Dr. Doom does not give you more of a chance to make $2 billion. And that's just what I think, because I think as fans, you can sit there and say, maybe it should have been someone new. This is a little bit weird. This is a little bit of an odd choice to bring back Iron Man, the hero of the MCU, as the lead villain, right? Like, what a crazy idea. So crazy. I think it's going to work. I will say, like, Matt Rimke on the Direct podcast made a great point, and I had the same kind of idea taking in this information. If you remove the fact that Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man for a second, right? It's like the spell in No Way Home. You somehow don't remember.
Okay.
And you take the guy that was in Oppenheimer and you just take his performances in general. And now he's going to be the lead villain in an Avengers movie. That's incredible. I love the guy as an actor, right? I think he's phenomenal. In terms of like what they're doing, they're bringing the boys back together, right? They're bringing the band back together. It is a safe move. It is, you could say desperate. I think that's definitely like that could be an appropriate way of putting it. But I think after Deadpool and Wolverine, the feeling to me isn't as desperate as it is. We're not going to take any. It's less risk averse, right?
Okay.
Like, we are going to bring the band back together. We got the Russos. Apparently, Downey was not going to do it without the Russos coming back, which I understand. I mean, that makes sense to me because they were able to put together quite the run over at Marvel Studios.
Yep, he's a big Community fan. We know that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, in general, like, there's a lot in terms of the plot and the fandom and like the lore of it all that's like really weird and interesting, and like, how is this going to work? Like, what happens when Tom Holland's Spider-Man sees this new version and he's like, Tony, and then it's like, who's Tony? I can't wait for that moment to do something like that. But very controversial. It was divisive in the moment too. Like, everyone walked out of there, and obviously it was crazy like when he popped out. But once the conversation started flowing after everyone left the hall, it was definitely like some were saying like, really? Oh, that's amazing. It was very like divided between the fans. But my point is, as someone who cares about the box office and like pays attention to these things, all those fans and everyone pretty much online who's like, I'm not sure, I don't care, you will be there opening weekend. And there's no doubt about it. So I just have so much faith in this movie box office wise. And it makes me think, wow, what can Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 now be in terms of box office? Because before, I never thought we'd reach the heights of Infinity War and Endgame again. Maybe Infinity War, definitely not Endgame. Now, as long as they are able to have a great 2025, like we just were recently talking about, I think all bets are off. Wow. I think there really is something special here. Bringing Downey back is a really weird move. Never expected it. But at the end of the day, it will raise the ceiling for what these movies can be.
Wow. Yeah, there is something to, if you love the movie, if you hate the movie, you're going to buy a ticket on opening day to see. And, Clayton, we were talking with KIRK Minihan about how Downey needs to give back his Oscar. But could this possibly be a move? Because he's coming back to play the villain. And if you look at who has won Oscars for these superhero movies, it's Joker twice. Could Downey actually be making a move to, a lot of people thought after Endgame, is he going to get a supporting actor nom for that last performance? Maybe he's actually looking at this is how I'm getting Oscar number 2 is by playing Dr. Doom in a Fantastic Four and Avengers movies.
Yeah, I mean, I do, David, I do think you have such a good point with that box office thing. It's like, yeah, for a box office perspective, we should be all for this, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you're taking an Oscar winning actor and putting him in a role like this, that is huge. That does automatically make it a prestige part.
Yeah. And you and your partner nailed it. That's true. If Downey had never been in these movies and coming off on Oppenheimer, this was his big cash in, I think we would all be saying, yeah, so I don't know if I'm back on board, but I'm definitely less off board than I was before this episode. So great job on that, David.
Well, it just comes down to, there's no way this does not lead to more butts in seats. Like, you cannot, and I made the point. It's like, look, Jonathan Majors, asshole, got fired, whatever. Quite the audible, I will say. Yeah. Like, in a way, maybe the best thing that's happening right now. Because, by the way, forget Downey. Dr. Doom's a much bigger villain than Kang. People love Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
Like, people fucking love Dr. Doom.
Oh, it's a great name.
When it was Doomsday that got announced before Downey, people were losing it. Like that was the thing. Like, I feel like there is something there too. And then now Downey stole the narrative because now it's like, how does this work? Is it because there is a story way with the multiverse where no one, not a single soul, wants to see Victor Von Doom be a Tony Stark variant. No one wants to see that, right? So that's like, how do you explain it? That's the biggest question mark for fans. How is this explained? How does it make sense? And will it feel weird that basically Tony Stark, right, Robert Downey Jr., is the villain, and you believe that, and you're scared of him, and there are stakes. So a lot of challenges ahead, but it's exciting.
Yeah, and listen, it could be wigs and prosthetics too.
Well, Dr. Doom's face is mutilated. He is an acid. I mean, he had acid on his face, so he will have prosthesis. So this is not you're not gonna see him like you saw Tony Stark.
Right. Yeah, I'm very curious how they're going to play that. I actually recently wrote an article about Dr. Doom's mask and like the different versions, in the comic books. And like sometimes it's as bad as like melted onto his face, like he put it on too quickly and it like kind of like burned his entire face. Sometimes it is more of like a singular kind of like slight scar. And then others is kind of what Clayton is saying, where it is like there's a world where they make it so Downey's really not very recognizable. Or at least like he won't look anything like Tony Stark. And I think it's as simple as that personally. I think as long as he doesn't look like Tony Stark, you're good. Like Downey has now proven, he was just in that Sympathizer show and with Oppenheimer, he can get lost in a character, even though he is like Iron Man was him being himself in this elevated fashion. And that's what made it so perfect because he was the character in many ways, but he can get lost inside of a character too. And that's what he said on stage. Like, what can I say? I like complicated characters. And Doom is a complicated character. And by the way, throwing it out there, he will appear in Fantastic Four. That's not inside information. That's just a prediction. He will definitely, in some form or fashion, be in the Fantastic Four.
Wow.
It's great that he is now getting lost in characters and not lost in his neighbor's houses on Smack. Yeah. That's what we like to see our RDJ doing.
Yeah. If you're going to get lost, to get lost on set. So wanted to throw this out quickly while we're on the superheroes, because I sent you both a striking piece of footage, which I think is great for Warner Brothers, which is going all over Twitter. There was a man who, and Clayton, this was at, I don't know if you recognize the theater. This is the IFC Center on 6th Avenue.
Oh, I knew. As soon as I saw the screenshot, I was like, good old IFC.
So a indie theater on 6th Avenue in New York City. A man had just bought a ticket to a movie, watched a half hour of trailers, and came outside and was yelling and screaming at the ticket taker that despite all those trailers for a half hour, he did not get to see the trailer for Joker 2 starring Lady Gaga. And this man was outraged. And it was filmed and it's going all over the place. You got to see this. And also, we want to get this person on the show. So if anyone has any contact with this man who was yelling outside the IFC Center about not getting the Joker 2 trailer, let us know. But David, want to throw this out to you. First of all, did you recognize this man from any comic book conventions? Is this possibly someone you've had on the Direct podcast at any point? And what do you think that kind of enthusiasm means for Joker 2, that this person was screaming because he did not see a trailer that is readily available on YouTube?
Yeah, no, I do not. I do not recognize the guy.
Okay,
I'd love to meet him. Love to say hi.
We all would. Yeah,
very curious in terms of like, why are you so passionate about seeing it on the big screen? Seems like Lady Gaga. Seems like a Gaga guy.
Yeah.
Little monster.
Awesome. Cool for you. That's awesome. That's dope. Joker 2 is going to be a smash hit. I look, totally different films. People love R-rated comic book movies. It's plain and simple. In this day and age, like between Joker 1, now it's going to be Joker 2. I think the second trailer they just released, kind of showing more of those musical elements, to me worked really well. And I'm a big fan of Joker 1. I really, really like that movie. I think it was a great time. This movie is not necessary. I don't think it's going to make as much money as Joker 2, because that was also in an age where just comic book movies were at a different place in general. And this one's not so much. but I do think it'll be a smash hit. And to that guy's point, I think Lady Gaga is going to be a big part of that. The musical elements are going to be a big part of that. They are going in. It's not just a cookie cutter generic what you'd expect the Joker 2 movie to be. It does seem they're making kind of a sharp, drastic turn in direction for what this like franchise is. And I actually think that's going to be very wise and work out pretty well for him.
Yeah. It's this is if I'm Warner Brothers, I take that clip and I get it in a commercial and get it on every network in America this weekend because
that's trailer 3.
Marketing.
That's trailer 3. That's final trailer. Just that clip.
Yeah. So
it'll
and
play
again,
before, when you click Penguin in a couple of weeks, that's what'll play ahead. It'll just do that, and then it'll like skip ad, and then you're like, oh, I actually don't want to skip this. This is great stuff.
Yeah, I want to click to meet this guy. So yes, if anyone knows
QR code
screaming man outside, let us know. The boboyspodcast at gmail.com. Get him on this, the direct. You could do the whole media tour. Yeah. So let's get into what's coming out this weekend, and we'll really do a quick hit on this because it's not superhero related. So honestly, on this episode, who cares? But M. Night Shyamalan's new movie Trap is coming out this weekend. Clayton, you and I are seeing it tomorrow night, opening preview night. And, this one to me feels like it has more buzz than his last few, more so than Old, definitely more than Knock at the Cabin. I think it's got more potential because of that trailer's got a hook, and it's got the kind of hook where people are like, what's really happening in this movie? Josh Hartnett, goes to a concert, and there's a trap and things ensue. So David, what is your thoughts on this? Are you excited for this movie? Does Shyamalan get any direct type of coverage? Where are you at on M. Night Shyamalan's Trap coming out tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think in general, if we were to write about M. Night Shyamalan, it'd probably be in an article similar to kind of like diving into spoilers, reveals, maybe like some like the more scarier elements in terms of like what people are interested in looking for, streaming, stuff like that. With Trap, I'm really excited for the movie. I'm seeing it Saturday with a group of friends.
Nice.
Me and the wife have been excited to see it since we saw the first trailer in theaters. Really cool, by the way. It's one of the few where I saw it in a theater before I saw it online, which doesn't happen very often. I remember that was like, months and months ago. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm pretty confident it's going to have a big weekend. I think in general, this weekend's going to be really, really good all around. I think it's going to be more spread out than last weekend. And I think a lot of people are going to be at the theater.
Yeah. So Clayton, tomorrow, I mean, this is actually Clayton's birthday movie. Getting a group together to see Trap. So do you think Trap is going to set you off for a positive year, or do you think, you're going to find yourself trapped in misery because it's your birthday movie? Where are you at on this?
I'm positive about this. I think this is going to be a good kickoff to another great year in my life. And I think we were talking, and David, you mentioned Oppenheimer, you mentioned RDJ, but Hartnett's an Oppenheimer alum too. And these, that's going to do a lot. There's a lot of people last summer who saw this gentleman in that. And I think it's going to be a draw as well. And so I am very positive about this. Again, I think it's a cool gimmick. I think we're all going to go see it, whether we're skeptical of the twists or not. And so I think this is going to be I would say, and because I do have to go, I'm just going to give my number for this movie.
Okay.
I'm going to go 19. I'm going to go 19.
I love it. I mean, let's give our top fives. We'll cover this movie in depth, Clayton, on the recap episode. So let's go around and give our top fives for this weekend for Trap. And just one more thing on this. Long Legs. Horror is on an upswing because of Long Legs. So I think there's some good vibes for this type of movie with general audiences. So we take that into account. So David, would you like to go first, second, or third on your top 5 predictions for the weekend?
I always like to go second on this show. It's my favorite.
Everyone loves to go second. Clayton, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up because the numbers isn't working. So I'm trying to pull up the weekend so I can get an idea of what's going on.
Well, then you know what? I could go first because I got the numbers right in front of me here. So listen, number 1, of course, is going to be Deadpool and Wolverine. I think it's going to do a giant drop because it started so high. I don't think it gets to 100 million this weekend. I think it's under 100 million at number 1. Number 2 is going to be Twisters. Twisters had the big drop last weekend. I think it stabilizes this weekend. It just had so much air taken out of it from Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's a number 2, and that'll do, I think, 26 or so. I think that's going to do really well. Number 3, you know what? I'll go one better. I think Trap gets to 20. I think Trap gets to 20 million. Here's the one we haven't even said its name yet, and we'll talk about this in the recap episode. Zachary Levi is back, and he's got a purple crayon. Harold in the purple crayon. I still think it's Inside Out is going to be after Trap, and then God, does Harold get in there? I think Minions beats Harold. This purple crayon, I don't think, and I know the book is popular, but Zachary Levi just brings nothing right now. So I don't think he makes the top 5.
It's not that he brings nothing. He brings genuine creepiness.
Yeah. He's a legit negative here. So I don't think that makes the top 5. Yeah. So there you go. So I'm going Deadpool, Twisters, Trap, and then Inside Out, and then the Minions. So David, what is your top 5 prediction for this weekend? Are you high on Harold?
I'm not high on Harold.
Okay.
I'm looking at my notes here. I might squeeze him in. Number 1, I'm gonna go Deadpool and Wolverine. It will hit 100 million. Let's go. The MCU's back.
Right.
Just had to be a shill for a moment.
You got it. No, you got it.
Yeah. Number 2, I'm gonna go Trap. I think it will do better than Twisters, actually.
I love it.
I mean, I think a lot of people are interested in this movie. Like, you want to talk about, it was earlier, we were talking about the Cap4 trailer when you saw Deadpool Wolverine, it was like la-di-da. Everyone always like talks to each other after the Trap trailer plays, I feel like, in theaters. And that's a really positive thing. A lot of people, like, we're going with the group of just like, I think like 8 people, which is normally not the case. So I'm like really high on that. So for Trap, I'll go 25 million.
Well, I love it. It's a party movie. David Thompson says Trap's a party movie. I love it.
Party movie, and people like talk about M. Night Shyamalan, even if it's not even like even if his most recent movies aren't like their favorite, it's still a draw, right? There was that movie, what was that movie called with the M. Night Shyamalan's daughter?
The Watchers. Yeah.
Like, I think that even had, like, that was smart of them in the marketing to say that, because I remember some people like thought like, oh, that's the new M. Night Shyamalan movie. I'm like, and I was talking about Trap. People were confused because of the marketing. Number 3, I will go Twisters. I'm gonna go with that 19 number. Clayton pulled out. I'm gonna say 19 for Twisters, which I think is still really great. I really enjoyed Twisters, and I think box office wide, it's great to see. Yeah, I think Inside Out 2 is pretty safe. They're at 4. A number for Inside Out 2. Jeez Louise, how much longer can this thing go? I love to see it though. I go like 6 million there, and then I'll put the purple crayon in there at 5. It's still the only reason I say that, it's a new kids movie, and it is like one of the last weeks of summer, so I do think there is still like some, I guess, like, sense of like the kids aren't back in school yet. Hey, there's a new one. Want to go see that and spend $30 on popcorn? So yeah, I'll put the crayon in there at like 4 million or 5 million or so. Okay,
they're hiding Zachary Levi perhaps effectively enough that it'll still get in the top 5. Clayton, where are you at? Do you have Harold in the purple crayon at number 1? What is your top 5 predictions here?
So number 1, Deadpool Wolverine, obviously slam dunk. I do also think it's over 100. I think it's 101. Right. Twisters is going to be number 2, I believe. I do think it does 23 or so. Then I'm going 19 for Trap, which is at 3. I'm going to put Purple Crayon at 4.
Wow.
All right.
Just because I do agree that it's just new rats, new cheese for the rats.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be number 4. And then Inside Out 2 is going to be number 5.
Wow. So big, still in the corner of Zachary Levi is Clayton.
I'm locked in, by the way, to this Trap Twisters thing we got going on. I'm team Trap. Let's go. I'm really pulling for Trap. Might go see it twice.
Yeah, Twisters is starting to feel like a little bit of an underdog after the big drop last weekend. We said this a month ago. Why didn't Twisters open a few weeks earlier? give some space between that and Deadpool. That was a rough move. So,
Yeah.
David, where can listeners find your great analysis, all your podcasts, everything? Tell us where they could find more David Thompson.
Yeah, a few places. So podcasting wise, the Direct Podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every Monday, breaking down all the universes that you love in terms of Marvel, Star Wars, DC, box office. For me, obviously, I always have to bring it up. Movie business, really a whole bunch of different topics. Cinema spending. I post on Wednesdays, but on that show, I do it whenever I feel like it. Like today, I felt like it, so I posted on that. It's normally when I have something to say, because I just basically do it myself. I say it and post it. So check that out.
Love it.
And then also follow the Direct Extras YouTube page. Subscribe to that. So on the Direct Extras YouTube page, we have interviews and then not box office, sometimes podcast clips. So we, over the next week or so, I did a lot of interviews with a lot of different talent at San Diego Comic-Con. And that's where all of the video forms of those interviews are going to be. And then, of course, find me, David Thompson, on thedirect.com. writing and doing all those fun things. And thanks guys for having me. Can't wait for Joker 2. We're not too far away. Another comic book slam dunk, hopefully.
You got to fly into New York, or we should all see it at the IFC Center.
Yeah, right. Find that guy.
Yeah, he'll be there. So of course, email us theboboyspodcast gmail.com. Follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod. Watch us on YouTube. Hey guys, we are YouTubers. And of course, the live show tours in the show notes. Get tickets now for all the shows: LA, New York, and Boston. And Clayton, I mean, I think that's it. I think we've said it all.
You have said it all, Pat, and there's nothing left to say.
Yeah, nothing.
Or let's make it a fast one.
Okay.
We'll
smell you at the box office.
Nailed it.
That was a fast one.
That was fast.